Hey, Crawlspace listeners, we wanted to bring you an episode that recently aired on our other podcast, Missing.
So for any listener who doesn't know, like you said, Tim, we have two shows, and we always want to air episodes of Missing on Crawlspace when they are appropriate and relevant.
Okay, and that's what we are bringing you here today, so please make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on social media. Thanks a lot for listening.
It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside.
In today's new episode of Missing, we dive into the disappearance of Frederick Valentich over the skies of Australia on October 21st, 1978. And this information that we're about to discuss is based on official Australian government records, contemporary news reports, and investigative analyses.
And we just want to give a special shout out to our listener, Lyanna, who commented on our Ghost Blimp episode on Spotify and kind of pointed us in the right direction to this story. So thank you so much for your comment. And Tim, we have that comment here.
Yep, Lyanna says, interesting episode. You guys may want to check out the disappearance of Frederick Valentich in Australia in 1978, who vanished while flying a small aircraft. His last words were, "It's not an aircraft." So that certainly piqued our interest, and we looked into it, and this is absolutely a case that we wanted to discuss. So please let us know what you think on YouTube or Spotify, and please follow us on social media at Missing CSM. Thanks a lot for listening. We're going to take a quick break here for the podcast, and we'll be right back to discuss the mysterious disappearance of 20-year-old pilot Frederick Valentich. Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Melbourne native with a passion for the skies. By October 1978, he had logged approximately 150 hours of flight time. He held a Class 4 instrument rating, which authorized him to fly at night under visual flight rules. So this meant he was legally allowed to fly after dark, provided he could maintain visual contact with the horizon or ground.
And that's important. I didn't know that that was a thing. I mean, I didn't know a lot about aviation, but it's always cool when you learn something right off the bat with these stories. I didn't know that you had like instrument rate. I knew you had instrument ratings, but Class 4 being that you're able to fly after dark. That just makes total sense. But his record was not perfect. It was a little checkered. He had twice applied to join the Royal Australian Air Force. He was rejected, however, due to educational qualifications. He was reportedly not a great student, and he was also struggling with his commercial pilot's license exams. He failed several subjects just weeks before his disappearance. So kind of struggling, kind of reminds me of somebody who just wants to fly, but not really, I don't know, maybe too impatient to put the actual study into it.
And he had also recently met a girl who he started spending some time with, and her name is Rhonda. And we've got some clips here that we're going to play. This is actually a clip from a podcast episode called Last Light, which was produced by the Australian Broadcast Company. It's really pretty great. Great episode. There will be links in the show notes, but I'm going to play this clip here of Rhonda.
He was very friendly always smiling, which you see in a lot of the photos. He'd always joke about things and try to stir people, like in a funny way. Very confident with everything he did.
That March, Frederick met a 16-year-old friend of a friend named Rhonda Rushton. As Rhonda tells it, it was pretty much love at first sight.
Peter was talking and Fred and I were just looking at each other, and we actually remember that we couldn't remember what Peter said. It was like we just, sort of stared at each other. And then Fred said he had to go and he walked off, and just as he walked off, a little bit, I turned around and he turned around at the same time.
Fred, the dashing older boy, tall and smart in his dark blue uniform, driving Rhonda across town and across the skies, even flying her to Newcastle to visit her favourite uncle on a whim.
Fred was at my house the night before, and we had arranged that I would go with him, which I'd gone on many, many flights with him. So many strange events happened that day and just stopped me from going.
Okay, interesting. So that's a little bit from Rhonda speaking about Frederick, and it sounds like they spent a good amount of time together. They were in love, and that she actually flew with him in his airplane at times, which sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, he was how old? And he was 20 or 19, 20, and she was 16?
Yeah. So perhaps most significant for the context of this mystery, Valentich was actually a known UFO enthusiast. This is interesting. This has obviously come up later. But his father later confirmed that Frederick had spent significant time studying UFO literature and had expressed concerns about being intercepted by such craft.
Yeah. That reminds me of a couple of those stories that we've covered before where somebody is very aware that they might go missing, or they're sort of paranoid. They border that line, and their family members or their significant other has said, yeah, the person had this fear. So I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy here, but it is kind of tough to do that when you have other entities that are involved.
Yeah, well, hold that thought of a
yes, exactly.
fulfilling prophecy. Okay, we're going to play another clip here. This is Rhonda again.
He did have a small interest in UFOs, and it was starting to get probably a little bit bigger because he said he saw some things at Sale when he was there, but also the movie had come out, The Close Encounters, and he was so excited about that. But I remember one night we used to go up Dandenong Mountains because it's a great view and nothing happening. We were just, everyone did that, and so we go up there a bit. Anyway, we're up there one night, we're just chatting, and Fred said to me, if a UFO came now, I'd love to go with it. But he said, I'll never go without you.
Okay, interesting there. I mean, yeah. I think, maybe if you're into it, you might joke about that stuff when you're younger, around that age probably.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do if someone told me that. If a UFO were to take me, I would go with it, and I would want you to come with me. Like, well, I get the love thing, but like,
yeah,
that's a tough one.
I don't know. I feel like People do say that, I think. And also, I don't know if you remember the movie Independence Day, where there are people holding up signs being like, take me, Yeah. So I don't know. There's a little bit of precedent for that kind of thing. And I think it's more of an immature perspective, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it is interesting to note that the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind had recently been released in Australia. So UFOs were certainly in pop culture in a major way.
Right. And I mean, this is just like a perfect storm for this guy. He's a pilot. He's cleared to fly at night. He's a UFO enthusiast. Now UFOs are just in the culture, woven in the fabric, because Spielberg releases probably the greatest extraterrestrial UFO movie up to like the time. I mean, E.T. and then Close Encounters. So, I mean, these are just like like everyday items now that people talk about. So everything's lining up perfectly for this guy.
Right. So the flight that Frederick was taking on October 21st, 1978 began as a routine training mission. And Valentich arrived at Morabin Airport and rented a Cessna 182L. And the flight plan was to travel from Morabin to King Island, which is a 125-mile trip across the Bass Strait. And he had fuel for 5 hours of endurance, and his departure time was 6:19 p.m. And his stated purpose was picking up, I guess, crayfish at King Island that he had ordered previously. So that'll kind of come up again a little bit later.
Right.
But crucially, Valentich did not request that the runway lights at King Island be turned on for his travel, which was an unusual oversight for a nighttime landing on a remote island.
I mean, this could just speak to him being inexperienced or just not like always crossing the T's and dotting the I's on his flying.
At 7 p.m., Valentich radioed that he was passing Cape Otway, the last point of mainland Australia, before heading over the open water of the Bass Strait. So 6 minutes later, this strange encounter began.
So a man named Steve Roby was the flight service controller on duty at Melbourne Flight Service. And it is a little bit of a rabbit hole to go down and looking into the actual recording.
Yeah, or looking for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is really interesting, actually, that many rumors persist online, and the AI age has brought a whole bunch of videos that are most likely not the actual recording.
Yeah.
So, and again, we'll get into that in a little bit, but we're going to read the full transcript here. Okay, so I'll play Valentich. Lance, you can play Steve Roby.
I'll play Steve Roby, who is the controller.
Yes. Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000?
All right, so that was at 7:06 and 14 seconds, and the response comes in at 7:06 and 23 seconds from the controller. Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic.
Yep. Okay, and this is a back and forth conversation, so all these times are within a few seconds. Valentich says, seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000.
Delta Sierra Juliet, what type of aircraft is it?
I cannot affirm. It is for bright, and it seems to me like landing lights.
It seems like there's a little pause here because the controller then says Delta Sierra Juliet, like continue.
Yeah, it also seems like Valentich there kind of started and stopped a couple of thoughts.
Yep.
In that last bit. So it seems like the controller was just trying to make sure he still had contact with him.
Yep.
Valentich then says, Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above.
Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. And is it a large aircraft, confirmed?
Unknown. Due to the speed it's traveling, is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
Delta Sierra Juliet, no known aircraft in the vicinity.
Melbourne, it's approaching now from due east towards me.
Another bit of a pause. Delta Sierra Juliet.
Open microphone for 2 seconds. Valentich, Delta Sierra Juliet, it seems to me that he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2-3 times, then at speeds I could not identify.
Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. What is your actual level?
My level is 4,500. 4500.
Delta Sierra Juliet, and you confirm you cannot identify the craft.
Affirmative.
Delta Sierra Juliet, roger, stand by.
Melbourne, Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft. It is...
Delta Sierra Juliet, can you describe the aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet, as it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify more than it has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. And how large would the object be?
It seems like it's chasing me. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me also. It's got a green light and sort of metallic light aspect. It's all shiny on the outside.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
It's just vanished.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Melbourne, would you know what kind of aircraft I've got? Is it a military aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet, confirm the aircraft just vanished.
Say again?
Delta Sierra Juliet, is that aircraft still with you?
Delta Sierra Juliet. It's now approaching from the southwest.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet. The engine is rough idling. I've got it set at 23, 24, and the thing is coughing.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, what are your intentions?
My intentions are to go to King Island, Melbourne. That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft.
Delta Sierra Juliet. So now we have 17 seconds of a pulsing metallic scraping sound.
Okay, we are going to play that here.
Yep.
And this is actually the real sound. Okay, so buckle up for this. So again, that's the actual sound from the transcript, or not the transcript, the recording of this back and forth between Valentich and Roby.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Pretty interesting sound there.
Yeah. And I just want to back up to the last thing that Valentich said, which is the aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it is not an aircraft. They try to contact him again, and then we get that sound. It's a weird sound. I mean, if we'll get into it a little bit later, or I'll just state it now. I would have felt like if this was an open mic situation and you had that metallic scraping sound, or if you had any sound and he crashed into the ocean, I feel like there would have been a little bit more. It'd be a little bit more like evident that he crashed, whether into something solid or into the ocean.
You're saying based on that sound? Based
on the open mic, yeah. So the 17 seconds of the metallic sound, which I'm assuming happened during an open mic, like an open radio transmission.
Yep.
So it didn't sound like a crash to me.
It didn't to me either. I didn't hear any splash or anything like that. Let's play it one more time real quick.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Yeah, I don't know what to...
It is very strange.
It doesn't sound like a familiar sound, I will say. Like,
I was just going to say that. Like, is this a sound that people who fly in aircrafts and jets hear often? Is it just like the sound of the aircraft? But there hasn't been anybody contributing to this story who has said that, though. So I don't know.
Not that I've found. Yeah. It's interesting. It's unlike any sound I've ever heard, I can say. So we do have a clip of Steve Roby from that same podcast. And so he was the air traffic control person who was communicating with Frederick when he vanished. And this clip also includes a produced recreation of the transcript that we just read. And again, this is a recreation. It includes some sound effects to make it sound like it's actual, but it is a recreation mixed in with this interview with the air traffic controller, Steve Roby.
On the other end of the radio, settling into the 5 to midnight shift at Melbourne Flight Services Unit at Tullamarine, is Steve Roby. 40 years on, Steve remembers that day very well.
Well, he certainly sounded agitated. Initially, I was concerned because he reported another aircraft. He suggested possibly a military aircraft, so it had to be some size.
The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
I had absolutely no details on another aeroplane. It was a very quiet night.
No known aircraft in the vicinity.
So it developed from there. It became apparent that it couldn't have been an aircraft the way it was moving and the speed at which it was moving.
Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft,
Can you describe the aircraft?
As it's flying past, it's a long shape. cannot identify it. It has such speed.
At one stage he said it disappeared and then it reappeared, and he was orbiting and the thing was formated on top of him.
It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished.
I come to the conclusion that it was not an aeroplane, it was some sort of object that was, harassing him, I suppose you could say.
Is the aircraft still with you?
Say again?
Is the aircraft still with you?
Now approaching from the southwest.
Pretty interesting there. I mean, that's the guy who was communicating with Frederick when he went missing, and he doesn't know what it was. He thinks he encountered something.
Yeah. I have to say the recreation was pretty good, but I would have felt that there should be a little bit more panic in his voice there. But if you were to tell me that was the actual playback, really good quality. So well done to them for that. But
yeah, just on in an aside, like I think that audio is actually confusing people a little bit because it was baked into that episode, that Last Light podcast episode, but it also exists as a video on YouTube. So, and most of the videos of that recorded transcript are in like that you can find on YouTube are very clearly AI because there's all these pictures and videos that are not real, and a lot of the people reading it are in American accents. So it's obvious that that's not the real one. But this one, with the background noise and their accents, the production, it makes it sound like it is real. So I do think it's fooling some people into thinking that's the real one. But from my research, it is not the actual recording.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got another clip here of Rhonda. And this is Frederick's fiancée, Rhonda, on her experience when she learned that Frederick has disappeared.
By October, Fred and Rhonda were engaged. The ring was still on lay-by when the news came through.
I was at home. I was still dressed to go out with him for that night. I lied on my bed all night. I didn't sleep. And in the morning, my dad religiously would turn the ABC on at 6 a.m. every morning. And as soon as he turned it on, the first thing that came on was that a pilot had gone missing over Bass Strait. So I got up and I rang Moorabbin Airport, not my father, I rang them, and I said to them, I think I know the pilot that's gone missing. And they replied to me, you tell us who you think it is. And I said, I think it's Frederick Valentich. And then they said, hold the line. And then I just broke down and my father took over.
Rhonda has a tattoo on her left arm. She tells me she got it about 3 years ago. It simply reads, VHDSJ, 21 October 1978, 1912-22. Fred's plane registration and the exact moment it vanished.
So that's Rhonda.
That had to have been a tough phone call. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, sounds really heartbreaking. And
it's tragic. Jesus.
Yeah, and this is nearly 50 years old, this story. But at the time of that recording, I want to say it was around 40 years. But still, that's a long time for Rhonda to have still, held on to those feelings, that love. Mm-hmm. She got a tattoo somewhere around, I guess, 35, estimating around 35 years after he went missing, she got that tattoo.
Yeah. Still living with her. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, and what did Fred's family think, you might ask? Well, here is Fred's dad, Guido.
Do you believe Frederick is aboard a UFO?
Well, I wouldn't know what to believe, but it's something very strange. Maybe has been lifted up in a higher altitude and perhaps might be released then, in some other part of this earth.
In January 1979, Fred's father Guido writes a letter to the Department of Transport. He asks for a copy of the tape of Frederick's last transmissions so the family could have some record of his voice. Bending their usual rules, the department agreed on the proviso Guido never release the tape to the media.
So that's the part where some people will try to make you believe that you're hearing the real recording. So Guido actually heard it. He was played it by the Australian government. Was apparently given it. He passed away in somewhere around 2000. So again, if you see any out there online, it's probably not the real one, but I suppose there's a chance that could have been released at some point by Guido or the family. So maybe that does happen at some point in the future. But at this point, I don't believe that is out there.
Right. It seemed like there was a stipulation that they had to sign off on, that they weren't going to release it. So,
right.
They got what they wanted. They wanted to hear his voice. They wanted the last transmission. So probably no need for them to release it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just you never know with, after he passed away, you just never know what the other family members would do. But
Right.
So as far as the official investigation, the Australian Department of Transportation opened an investigation and coordinated a massive search operation. Over 1,000 square miles of the Bass Strait was searched using RAAF P3 Orion aircraft and civilian vessels, but unfortunately no wreckage, oil slicks, or personal effects were found. And it was also later found that no friends were waiting and no crayfish were ordered. So that was kind of something that was stated earlier, was that his intention was apparently to pick up crayfish, and there was apparently no ordering of that. So that part is a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, right. His original intention was to go to King Island, pick up friends and crayfish, and he had ordered the crayfish, but there was none of that had been done. But he also made plans later on. Like, he had planned later on to go out with Rhonda, right?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like from Rhonda's clip. Yeah.
Yeah, and she waited up all night.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those things he fibbed about, If there was no crayfish and no friends waiting for him on King Island, what was he actually doing there? And did he actually plan to go out with Rhonda? I don't know. This will all end up going into theories that we'll come up to later on. But the DOT reported eventually, their report eventually concluded that the reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined. So they found nothing.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible.
Yeah, here's a clip here.
Within a week of the disappearance, the department's investigators wrote that Fred had built up a facade of his ability, achievement, and future. Officially, the department's investigation reached no conclusion. But the undertone of the Department of Transport file is unmistakable. That Valentich either deliberately disappeared or staged an elaborate suicide. The family and others close to the case, however, have always insisted that theory doesn't hold up.
Do you think Frederick could have staged his own disappearance?
No, because it is family tied, and his career a bit too right reason not to be.
Over the years, I have not for one moment entertained the theory that he staged his own disappearance. I really do believe that he did encounter something fairly strange.
I guess that begs the question: why would he stage his own disappearance? He seemed to be happy with Rhonda, and I mean, maybe he wasn't the best pilot, but it wasn't like he was down on his luck and had an abusive, home situation.
Sure doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
Sounds like he had a loving fiance. He had friends. He had a good career trajectory, even though, as we noted, he wasn't a great student, but he had gotten to the point where he was able to fly.
I mean, he was able to fly. I mean, that's an achievement.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
So in 1983, which is about 5 years after Frederick went missing, an engine cowl flap from a Cessna 182 was found washed up on Flinders Island. And while some believed it belonged to Valentich's plane, the serial number was between a certain range of serial numbers, which included Valentich's aircraft, but they were never able to make a 100% match. And in fact, it appears other Cessna 182 planes had lost similar parts near that area. And the erosion on the part that was found made it difficult to know where and when it was from. And for a little extra added mystery here, Lance, seems like this part that was recovered in 1982 has since vanished.
Of course it did. Yeah. Of course it vanished. Flinders Island is in the Bass Strait, and it's on the northeasternish tip of Tasmania, much closer to Tasmania than it is to Australia, to Melbourne or any city in Australia. So right there, looking at it now, like right there in the Bass Strait. So it would have made sense, right, if part of his airplane was found there. Very strange that it was never confirmed and it's lost.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like no oil slicks found. Had the plane gone into the water, I think there would have been some debris found, maybe. And this could count as, the debris. But I don't know.
Well, if it went into the water, why wasn't he talking during that transmission that he was going into the water?
Right. Or screaming or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, okay, we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, there's the mystery of these photographs called the Roy Manifold photographs. So about 20 minutes before Valentich's first radio call, an amateur photographer named Roy Manifold was at Cape Otway taking a series of sunset photos. And he was using a camera set to automatic exposure to capture the sun dipping into the sea. And when the photos were developed, the fourth and sixth frames showed something unusual. Photo 4 appeared to show a dark, dense mass on the water, and photo 6 captured a strange, blurred object in the sky above the water, moving at a high angle.
These photos became a cornerstone of the investigation, obviously. Ground Saucer Watch, a U.S.-based research group, performed a computer analysis and concluded that the object was a solid metallic craft surrounded by a, quote, vapor or exhaust residue. A vapor or exhaust residue, end quote.
It's interesting.
Yes.
I will just add that, I think what a lot of people today talk about UFOs or UAP is I don't think there's an exhaust that comes from it. Vapor, maybe. That could be. Yeah. But, and again, there's no proof that this stuff exists anyway, so what I'm saying might not make any sense whatsoever. But so skeptics later looked at these photos and suggested that the marks were likely a developing error, a bird, or a large insect flying close to the lens. So we're not really quite sure on that. So we're here at Most Likely Theories, Lance. And there's a few that we can discuss.
So there's this spatial disorientation, or the graveyard spiral, which is a very haunting name for this, but it is really it is really eerie. It's a really eerie disorientation, and I think people get it underwater as well when they don't know which way they're swimming, if they're swimming up or down. So spatial disorientation. Scientifically speaking, it's probably the most plausible theory. We did mention that Valentich was an inexperienced pilot. He was flying over a featureless ocean at night. The theory being is that he suffered from the leans, or the graveyard spiral. And when you're in this state, a pilot can feel like they are flying level when they're actually banking in a turn. And if Valentich was flying upside down, the lights he saw were actually the reflections of stars or his own aircraft reflecting in the water. So if that was true, he could have inadvertently flown into the ocean at a high speed, causing the plane to disintegrate and sink. I mean, scientifically speaking, yes, this is very plausible. And given like this condition exists and people have had accounts of it before, and the fact that like he was talking about the thing being right above him would make you think that. But I guess without hearing the exact transmission, the exchange between him and Roby, it's hard to tell. Like, you'd think that he would know, and I know that like you're feeling differently when you're having this spatial disorientation, but you'd think you'd be able to tell, like if you're upside down. You know, I'm sure things would have been like gravity working here, but I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure if everything was strapped down in the cockpit. And I feel like he would have had something in his voice that would be different.
Yeah, maybe if you're upside down. Yeah, and I wonder, I don't know how fast a Cessna 182 moved, but I'm guessing it's not so fast that you wouldn't be able to tell if you were upside down or not. And also, I just want to mention, in the transcript, he says my level is 4,500, 4,500. So he says he's 4,500 feet above the surface. So I don't know. I don't think this is a very realistic scenario. Apparently, it's a thing that can happen, but I don't know why we would believe that after we went through the transcript and he says he's at 4,500 feet. When did he go down the rest? You know what I mean? When did he go down those other 4,500 is my question then.
Yeah. And I'm assuming, I've never been in the cockpit of a Cessna, I'm assuming that he's reading that off of some instrumentation, that he's not estimating that, you know? And he's not guessing whether the thing's coming in from the north, south, east, or west. He's reading his compass and noting where the object is. So it sounds like he still has his head about him.
It sounds like it's me. And of course, we do have a few questions still in regards to that, the crayfish, things like that. But at least from the transcript, it seemed like he was behaving normally. Mm-hmm. So another theory here that astronomers noted, they mentioned that Venus, Mars, and Mercury, along with the star Antares, were all unusually bright and aligned that evening. So this theory being that Valentich, who was already predisposed to looking for UFOs, may have fixated on these bright celestial bodies, and the perceived movement of the object could have been an autokinetic effect where a stationary light appears to move if stared at it for too long.
It's a theory.
It's a theory.
Yeah. It sounds to me, though, like he is specifically describing, he says landing lights, right?
Yeah, he says, I cannot affirm it is for bright, and it seems to me like landing lights. So that is what he said.
Yeah, it sounds like he's describing 4 bright lights on it that look like landing lights. So I don't know, maybe there was some weird thing in his windshield of the cockpit, and he's looking at a planet, and there's something obscuring his view through the cockpit. So he's like, his brain is putting together a structure that doesn't actually exist, and he sees the bright lights.
Well, it's like curved glass, right, over the cockpit. So I think that could actually make for a bizarre reflection.
I guess, but I would have thought that they would have designed aircraft so that you didn't have that. you know.
Yeah, at night. Yeah, that you wouldn't have a reflection like that. Yeah, I don't know. All right, the third theory here is engine failure and natural crash. So the Cessna 182L is a gravity-fed fuel system. If the craft were to experience a sudden mechanical failure, such as a carburetor icing common in that model, the engine would cough and rough idle, exactly as Valentich described, which could have resulted in him suffering a mechanical failure and having crashed. And the lack of wreckage is attributed to the deep, fast-moving currents of the Bass Strait. So that, to me, sounds more realistic than, flying upside down along the surface of the water.
That does sound more realistic, yes. And I did look up a Cessna 182L, and it looks like just what you think it is. It's like a 4-seater, I guess like a little passenger plane. The wings are on top. There's a slight curvature to the cockpit windshield. But in looking at this, like the wings are on top. I don't know like how he would be able, I'm not a pilot, so I'm just theorizing, but I don't know how he would be able to turn the plane upside down and still think that he's flying right side up.
Mhm.
It feels like this plane is designed to fly with the wings on top, like over the cockpit. I would have thought that there'd be a different wind pattern. It would react differently in speeds like this if the wings are on the bottom and he's flying upside down. So I'm dismissing that theory from my brain with my quick aviation background.
All right, I do want to play this clip. This is Steve Roby, the air traffic controller again. He's commenting on Valentich's piloting skills.
The people who flew with Valentich found him to be a solid and fairly serious pilot. Sober and responsible. Someone who didn't take needless risks. Steve Roby, as an air traffic controller and as a pilot, knows how careful Fred would have been.
He was a very conscientious pilot. He was a young student, and when you're young, and you have an ambition in aviation, you really do everything according to the book. You can't do anything about it once you're up there, so you've got to make sure that you do it before you take off. Takeoffs are optional, but landings are necessary.
Interesting. So, despite what we know of Frederick's checkered, I guess, flight history or his academic record, seems like he was a by-the-book pilot per the people who knew him.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to what you'd said a little bit earlier about he was able to fly. Like, that takes discipline. Like, we can say that he was a checkered and he was inexperienced, but he was young. You do have to be disciplined to learn the instruments in your aircraft. So, like, it's not like he just like lazily hopped into an airplane and was able to fly. So he did have discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and this other theory here is a staged disappearance, and apparently some of the Australian government believed this was a possibility. So, due to his recent exam failures and his conflicting stories about the flight's purpose, some believe that Valentich orchestrated the event to start over. This scenario being that he flew low to avoid radar, though radar coverage was limited anyway, and he landed in a remote part of Australia. Now, this is intriguing, sure, but no evidence of him living under assumed name has surfaced in 45 years. Obviously, his plane has not surfaced if he were to have landed in the outback or something like that. And for whatever it's worth, Fred's family and friends do not believe that he would have done that.
I think that's a bit of a long shot as well. First of all, it's a plane, and you have to, in the dark, land that plane, and you have to put it, if it hasn't been found, it has to be in an area so remote that no one has gone out there. I've never been to Australia, but I've heard many things about the, backwoods, the outback of Australia, and had he done that, he probably would have needed some sort of safe transportation to get him back into a place where he could travel off, and go start over, and not get stung by a scorpion or something like that, or one of those wolf spiders.
Like, I don't know how you would be able to land your plane in like with no lights or anything like that, and you know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah, that would be very difficult. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
we're saying he's pretty inexperienced. He's not necessarily a dangerous pilot, but he's only 20 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also, I don't know. I get tired of that excuse to start over, a new life to start over, like this elaborate plan. Why would he want to start over? Because he wasn't good at exams? He was getting engaged. He had a ring on layaway, Oh, I did poorly on an exam. I'm out of here. Like, no one mentioned that he was that frail.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
So the final theory here that we have is unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, UFOs, some kind of intervention here. And so this theory takes Valentich's words at face value, which, in covering these cases, Lance, is pretty much always where we start, I think, unless we're aware of some kind of break that the person is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You try to take him at face value initially. So This scenario is that he was somehow intercepted by a craft of unknown origin. And the evidence supporting this are the 20 separate witness reports of green lights in the sky near Cape Otway that same night.
Green lights on the sky near Cape Otway that same night. So these are other people. 20 separate witnesses.
Yeah.
So is this like one of those, like it was a gas leak?
Well, I don't know. So we wanted to discuss some of these more current events too, but before that, I want to play this clip of what happened 2 months later, just 2 months after Fred went missing.
2 months after Fred Valentich vanished, a plane carrying journalist Quentin Fogarty and his TV film crew recorded mysterious fast-moving lights over the Kaikoura coast in New Zealand.
We've just heard from Wellington radar that we've got an object about a mile behind us and it's following us. Let's hope they're friendly. It's really getting a bit frightening up here. There's a whole formation of unidentified flying objects behind us.
Interesting. Same skies, 2 months later.
Yep. And he says this is quite frightening. 2 months later, New Zealand, I'm sure everybody knows New Zealand is southeast of Australia and Tasmania.
But here in the United States, perhaps the most notable sighting or story of UAPs, UFOs, anytime in the modern era is sort of goes back to this New York Times piece that was published where these Navy pilots leaked footage and they spoke out. And this is a really wild part of this here. Play this clip real quick.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Okay, so the audio drops out here, but yeah, we're still watching this video that was leaked by the Navy and confirmed to be real by the Pentagon. And this is a really wild story. This is still not known what all these crafts are. And we do have a clip of the Navy pilots speaking about it as well.
We met two former Navy pilots, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich and Commander Dave Fravor. In 2004, they witnessed something shocking, inexplicable, and seemingly out of this world. Did the thought of UFO enter your minds?
It was unidentified, and that's why it was so unsettling to us, because we weren't expecting it, because we couldn't classify it. But what I want to be really careful of here is that we don't jump to conclusions, right? That we don't sensationalize this or...
Little green men?
Little green men or extraterrestrial.
Yeah. You're seeing something that defies explanation.
Right.
Very much.
Yes.
It was November 2004, and the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was training about 100 miles southwest of San Diego. The advanced new radar on a nearby ship, the USS Princeton, had detected what operators called multiple anomalous aerial vehicles over the horizon, descending 80,000 feet in less than a second. Fravor and Dietrich, each with a weapons system officer in the back seat, were ordered to investigate and found an area of whitewater in an otherwise calm blue sea. It appeared to them that an object about the size of a 737 was just under the water.
So, as we're looking at this, her backseater says, "Hey, Skipper, do you?" And about that got out, I said, "Dude, do you see that thing down there?" And we saw this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area.
Do you ever drop your phone and it sort of bounces off the countertop and then bounces off something else, and it's sort of like no predictable movement, no predictable trajectory.
Yeah.
I guess it was just
like a ping pong ball.
No acceleration.
Very, very random.
Acceleration.
As Dietrich circled above, Fravor went in for a closer look. So you're sort of spiraling down?
Yep. The tic-tac's still pointing north-south. It goes and just turns abruptly and starts mirroring me. So as I'm coming down, it starts coming up.
So it's mimicking your moves.
Yeah, it was aware we were there. You want to see how close I can get. So I go like this, and it's climbing still. And when it gets right in front of me, it just disappears.
Disappears?
Disappears. Like gone.
And you saw no visible propulsion,
Right.
no wings or anything to make it fly in our atmosphere?
No, actually, when it turned and started coming up, it was kind of like, okay. Because we have nothing that goes that fast and just starts climbing at will.
Seconds later, the Princeton reacquired the target 60 miles away.
So in a matter
like that.
Yeah, it just appeared there. Mm-hmm.
In seconds.
Yeah.
It was 60 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Later, another flight crew encountered what they believed to be the same object and briefly locked onto it with a targeting camera before it zipped off again.
They didn't get a visual on it, but they did get this FLIR footage,
video.
the forward-looking infrared.
So you've got the infrared image
Right.
Yes.
and your eyesight
Yes.
and the Princeton
The radar.
all saying there is something out there.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little bit of these Navy pilots experiencing a UAP, UFO, and really it being confirmed through news outlets, by these specific pilots, by the radar, by video footage, and it's in the skies, and it also appears to be coming from the water.
I know we do say that eyewitness accounts are oftentimes like unreliable, but this is more than that, right? Because this is something, it's their job to see things and record things and commit them to memory. It's not like somebody just passing by on the street, seeing something out of the ordinary, unexpected, in their brain trying to process that. Like, these are pilots who are essentially looking for these things that can be any danger to them flying. So when they see something out of the ordinary, I feel like they're trained to go into more like hyper recognition or like memory retention there. Like, they're going to make sure that they remember what they're seeing because it's so unusual. And I have no explanation for that. Like, you could say maybe it was a aircraft from another like country's air force that they were experimenting with, or a weather balloon. But haven't we just seen weather balloons before? You know, wouldn't they say this is a weather balloon? What country's got the technology to, and what pilot is equipped to handle the change in pressure like that? You can't go from those speeds so rapidly in those directions so rapidly that it's not going to mess you up.
But it's also a matter of national security. Like, if that was another country, it's imperative for the U.S. pilots to know that or to investigate it. So they're investigating it, these things that they're seeing over the water in the skies, as a matter of national security to try to learn a little bit more to find out what it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's real in that it's there. No country has taken responsibility. The U.S. government has even spoken out saying they don't know what these things are. And so this was from, you know, a little while ago. I think that initially was recorded in 2004, I want to say. And of course, the New York Times article was published, I think, in 2017. So this is going back a little ways. But Lance, here's a clip from March of 2026, which is last month, near Philadelphia.
It was some sort of like flying disc that just went over us at about 1,300 feet.
Is that a flying disc?
I'm not really certain what it was.
Roger, I'm not seeing any targets on the scope, but I'll let everyone inbound know, thanks.
Yeah, Tower American 3013, ILS 27 right.
American 3013, Philly Tower, wind 320 at Niner, right 27 right. Clear to land, use cause previous arrival reported a flying disc at 1,300 feet. They said it flew over.
Okay, clear to land, and we'll be watching American 3013.
American 1837, high speed, kilo spot 6, contact ramp. Do you have any more specifics about that disc, just for some reports?
I really don't. It was black, and that's it, unfortunately.
Do you think it could have been a drone?
It didn't look like it.
Was it like Frisbee sized, or?
Potentially, yeah, Frisbee, disc golf, maybe a balloon. I don't know. It definitely wasn't a balloon that had air in it.
Roger.
That is incredible.
That's pretty interesting. That's an American Airlines flight from just a month ago here, landing near Philadelphia. And apparently this disc, this black disc, as it was described, was flying at 1,300 feet. which is pretty high. I mean, I think legally drones can only reach 400 feet, but I think they can actually reach a higher altitude. But legally speaking, I think it's 400 is what the law is.
And it flew over them.
I mean, isn't that bizarre?
It's incredibly bizarre. So yeah, it could have been a drone, but it flew over them. She didn't say like we flew past it. She said it flew over us. So what was it, heading at them and then flew over them? And so you're at 1,300 feet. She said that the object, the disc, was at 1,300 feet, right?
Yes.
So they were a little bit lower than 1,300 feet as they came into land, I'm imagining. So your speed in an aircraft, in an airplane like that, I don't know, is it like 200 miles an hour, 300 miles an hour?
Yep.
So it has to be within that range of speed, or she would have said like we flew past it. I feel like, what drone goes that fast? I know it wasn't going next to them, so it was up that high, but she said it, I don't know. It was the way she worded that.
Okay, so yeah, but between 230 and 280 miles per hour at 1,300 feet. So this drone or black disc would have had to have been matching that if it's staying up with it. And if it's flying past it, like going the other way, I mean, you wouldn't have seen it. I guess my point in mentioning it, right? Like this aircraft, the airplane, the commercial American Airlines plane is flying 250 miles per hour. If this craft is just standing still in the air, you probably wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, right. And she says that it was frisbee shaped, or what else did she say?
A disc.
A disc. Like what's the other sport, like the frisbee golf sport or something?
Yeah.
Or like a flat balloon, a balloon without air in it. So she had enough time to like look at it briefly. She knew the color and the shape of it. But when they're talking about being like a frisbee shape or a balloon, deflated balloon, is it only like, is it little, or is it the size of a car, a small car?
I don't know.
It's crazy.
Certainly interesting. Yeah, it would have to be, again, big enough to be seen by human eyes,
and going at a speed where they can. It wasn't just like what was that, you know?
Right.
And they dismiss it as, you know, oh, that could have been a bird. Like it caused enough where they had to radio it in.
So now back to Frederick Valentich, Lance. I feel like we've come to the end of this story here, and we've got no answers, but what we've got is some precedent of unidentified things in the skies, seen by pilots, professional pilots, not being taken by these crafts that we know of, but seeing things that move in ways that no human can understand or explain at this point.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. And we are now in an age where we can record these things that are flying. But if you look back in history, I mean, there's like cave drawings that have beings coming from the sky and what appears to be some sort of vessel descending from the sky, you know, and maybe that's part fiction that our distant relatives were using to entertain, and they would draw it on the walls or draw it on tablets, and they used it to entertain. But where did they get that idea from? You know, there's something in the sky that has been collectively woven into our urban legends and our pop culture for hundreds of years, and it's just a different medium we're seeing it through now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is natural, because the sky changes. Just as a human with no technology or knowledge of, you know, the science of outer space or whatnot, the sky changes. Right now it's overcast, but it's bright. Later tonight, if it's not overcast, there'll be stars. There'll be thousands of lights in the sky in a black, you know, endless night sky. So I guess what I'm saying is, of course, people look to the skies for oddities, because where else are they going to look, especially dating all the way back?
Yeah, it's a huge unknown. You see a shooting star for the first time. Are you thinking a shooting star? You know what I mean? Like if you're back in our cave dwelling days and you see your first shooting star, it's a definite unknown that you're going to formulate a story around.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. Now we know what shooting stars are, so we have been educated on that. But we haven't been educated on a deflated balloon that's traveling at about 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, or a human pilot that goes missing with his plane. Like, I don't know. Again, it's been 50 years. Is Frederick and his plane, are they still in that water? Or did they enter that water? Or did they somehow enter some other dimension or something like that? Where they... I don't know. It feels weird getting to this point in the episode and,
I know,
positing these questions, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot happened in that 17 seconds of weird sound that we heard with the metallic scraping. I don't know what one has to do as a pilot to open the radio and speak. Do they need to have their hands free? Are they controlling the aircraft at the time? And, you're able to speak freely to tower, or do you need one hand to like hit a transmission receiver button so that you can speak? But what was he doing in that 17 seconds that opened the line? Was he trying to land the plane? Was something happening? Why wasn't he speaking? Why wasn't he saying, I'm going into the water? Or there's a beam that's retracting me into their into their ship, into their aircraft.
Yeah.
The sound of nothing is like, that's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Just open air.
And then there's this scraping sound. Here,
Yeah.
let me play this one more time here.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish I had some better idea.
Yeah. Like, was that like was it the opening of the, like, was it the open air of him trying to speak, but the transmission wasn't happening and it was making his voice sound more like this, metallic sound to it? Was it like a bad transmission or something all of a sudden? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there were no reports of that. Certainly Steve Roby didn't mention anything like that. I have no idea what that sound could be.
Right. I mean, okay, so Steve Roby was talking about it. He's an air traffic controller. He would be able to say pretty clearly, oh, that's what happens when transmissions are spotty. They're going through like a spotty like radar area or whatever. Like if the transmission isn't, if they can't hear him and the transmission is spotty, maybe that's what the voice sounds like. I feel like he would have said like, well, it sounds like he's trying to talk. I know some people think it's this metallic scraping sound, but that's what his voice sounds like when the transmission is spotty. But he didn't say that.
No, he sure didn't.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't sound really to me like there's a splash or any I don't know, like water sounds there, but it does maybe sound like there's a different environment, right? It almost sounds like it's echoing or something, like you're in a tin can, almost like you're scratching a tin can that's empty or something like that. That's, I guess, my best description of the sound. Wow. Well, I don't know, Lance. Definitely let us know what you think on YouTube or Spotify. We're definitely curious. Certainly UAPs, UFOs are sort of having another moment here in early 2026, and we're exploring that possibility here a little bit as far as that phenomena being mixed with missing people.
Yeah, well, wish we had some answers. If anybody out there has like any sort of info on any one of these details that we've gone over, it'd be great to hear from folks. Make sure you leave the comments in the comments section, and God, would love to have a little clarification. But yeah, this has been a mysterious one.
It sure has.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening, and we appreciate it. We will be back soon with another new episode.